Once again, good afternoon. It's less than 1 minute before we start our city council meeting. If you would like to sign up for citizen comments, please do so now. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today's workshop/council meeting. This is our first one. It's 3:00 p.m. Let the record show that all council members are present. We will start off with our invocation by Mr. Smith and followed by Councilmember Adams' Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's stand and bow our heads, please. Lord, thank you for all you do for us. These are troubling times. We almost lost a former president, and thank God it didn't turn out that way. But we need to follow the Lord's Prayer. It says, "Thy will be done." That's the Lord's will, not our will. And while we're on earth, we should try to live like we will live in heaven. We should treat each other the same way we would be treated in heaven. Forgive us our trespasses, but more importantly, forgive those that trespass against us. If we would just follow this guidance in our life, how much better would our lives be? In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Please join me in honoring our nation's flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for invocation, and Councilmember Adams for Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please silence your cell phones or any other devices that may cause an interruption in the meeting? Thank you. Now, Council, I would like approval of the agenda and PR-24-019, PH-24-027 and PH-24-028 will not be considered on this agenda for approval. Councilmember Boyd.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Second that.
All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. For our presentations, PR 24-019, that item has been canceled. In our work session, Council, you have 3 minutes, 3 times each to speak. Madam Secretary.
Discuss agenda items for the July 16, 2024 regular session. MN 24017, consider minutes of regular city council meeting of June 25, 2024.
Madam Secretary.
RS 24127, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing an agreement to transfer a police service dog.
Thank you. Chief Lopez. Good afternoon, sir. Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Is your mic on, Chief?
Yes.
Okay.
This request is to transfer with police dog that's being retired.
Police service dog Eddie has concluded his service with the city of Killeen due to age and physical ailments. PSD Eddie served for 8 years under the direction of his handler, Officer Akey. Foreseeing the need for a new canine, a replacement was budgeted in fiscal year 2024. Our newest member of the canine team was purchased at the beginning of the year. Officer Ake completed training and is actively working with the new dog, Kenzie, which now facilitates the official retirement and transfer of police service dog, Eddie. Texas Government Code 614, Subchapter L, allows the city to enter into a contract with a person to transfer a police service dog that has been determined by the chief of police to be suitable for transfer. Officer Ake requested that police service dog Eddie be transferred to him. As required by law, City Legal has prepared an agreement to facilitate the proper transfer of ownership. There will be no financial impact to the city due to the transfer of police service dog Eddie to Officer Ake. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the city manager or his designee to execute the agreement of transfer police service dog Eddie to his longtime partner, Officer Christopher Ake. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Chief Lopez. Council, do you have any questions of Chief? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Secretary.
RS 24128, consider a memorandum resolution approving a one-year license agreement with Environmental Systems Research Institute, Inc. for the Geographic Information System Division in an amount of $52,468.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Resto. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and along with me is my GIS manager, Eric McBride. When we get your questions, he's right there.
Good afternoon, sir.
So this evening, I'm going to briefing on the Geographic Information System, GIS software that we use, licensing. This is for the Technical Support and Environmental Research Institute, which is ESRI. We've been using that since 2001. The software is being renewed. It's used by many levels within the city and supports access to the GIS information available to citizens via the web, as well as internal to our staff members. The core software includes the ArcGIS Desktop, ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Server, the data store, the spatial database engine, and several ArcGIS Analyst extensions. Currently, in the system, the city, these are the departments that are currently utilizing GIS in one way or form or the other, whether it's digital, whether it's printed maps that we supply for all these departments. Again, ESRI provides geographical information services and software to city staff and community members through the internal and external websites. Our information technology department is seeking approval for a one-year agreement with ESRI for the GIS software using the DIR contract, DIR CPO 4699 in amount of $52,468. And this is in our current line item budget for the IT department. We recommend that City Council approve a one-year agreement with ESRI in the amount of $52,468 using the DIR contract, and that the city manager or designee be expressly authorized to execute any and all change orders with the amount set by state and local law. And we are available for any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Resto. Are there any questions, Council? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
RS 24129, consider a memorandum resolution declaring a vacancy on the Senior Citizen Advisory Board and appointing a member to fill the unexpired term.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Provost.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, City Manager, Council, and citizens of Killeen. The Mayor and the City Council make annual appointments to the various boards, commissions, and committees each year and throughout the year as vacancies occur. The Senior Citizen Advisory Board recently had a board member resign from their seat, creating a vacancy. To declare a vacancy and make an appointment to fill the unexpired term of the vacancy, City Council action is required. Ms. Stella Hickson resigned, and it's recommended that City Council declare a vacancy and appoint an individual to fill the vacancy on the Senior Citizen Advisory Board. Pending any questions?
Thank you, sir. The two council members, Councilmember Cobb, are you on that committee?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Solomon, are you on that committee? Do you have a recommendation?
Ma'am, we do not have the recommendation today because we did not have an opportunity to speak to some of the candidates. We did not call every candidate. Only one candidate was called.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Provost, they will have a recommendation for you. You have to have it today. So,
Sir, if you give us 30 minutes, we'll have them called.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
all right. Thank you. Any more questions? Madam Secretary.
RS 24130, consider a memorandum resolution supporting the application to Texas Parks and Wildlife Department's Local Park Grant Program, Non-Urban Outdoor Grant, FY24.
Thank you. Mr. Provost, welcome back.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Before you is the Texas Park and Wildlife Local Park Grant Program, Non-Urban Outdoor. Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, TPWD, Local Park Grant Program assists local governments with acquisition and/or development of recreation areas and facilities throughout the state of Texas. The program provides 50% matching grants on reimbursement basis to eligible applicants. This year, TPWD is offering the Non-Urban Outdoor Grant Program. The application deadline is August 1st, with awards announced in January 2025. The grant will pay for 2 projects: Fowler Park, playground structure, sidewalks, curb ramps, crosswalks, signage, benches, water fountain, shade trees, and irrigation. The estimated cost is $192,000. At Long Branch Park, we plan to resurface 1 existing tennis court, up to 4 new pickleball court services, plated pickleball nets, net posts, sidewalk repair, and curb ramp. The estimated cost is $25,000. The combined estimate cost for both projects is $217,000, with the city providing a $108,500 match. Matching funds are available in the 2023 Certificate of Obligation for the Parkland Development. And before you is Fowler Park, and then on the side you can see our plan is to upgrade the shade tree, sidewalk, crosswalk, play structure, water fountain, and benches and bench pad. Here's another illustration of the playscape. And then for Long Branch Park, before you is one of the tennis courts that we could revamp into 4 pickleball courts and not take away from the tennis court usage as well as at that park. And then and repair the sidewalk and curb ramp for this area, make it a little bit more ADA accessible for our patrons. And there's an example of what it could look like. And the recommendation is for staff recommends City Council approve the resolution for supporting of funding through TPWD Local Park Grant Program, Non-Urban Outdoor Grant Program, FY24.
Thank you, Mr. Provost, and your staff and team for coming up with this grant. That pickleball is something that's much needed because it's really growing in the senior community and now with young people. So I'm really, truly thankful that the money, the grant, is going throughout the city of Killeen to update our parks, because that is a vital part into a quality of life for our residents to have parks. Thank you for that.
Yes,
Are
ma'am.
there any more questions from council? Oh. Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a comment. It's always good to see park improvements, and shout out or much credit to the Parks and Recreation Department for pursuing and being successful in these park grant opportunities that further improve the quality of life in North Killeen. Outstanding.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I agree with that sentiment. I also just wanted to say that I know that particular court gets a lot of use, so it's awesome to see it being maximized as far as the efficiency is concerned. So,
Yes,
great work.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary.
PH 24025, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance submitted by John Bandis on behalf of Laura McManus and Greg McDonald to amend the comprehensive plan's future land use map from a regional commercial designation to a residential mix designation for approximately .222 acres out of Lot 11, Block 1, Fisher Commercial Subdivision, Phase 3. The subject property is locally addressed as 2303 Federal Street, Killeen, Texas.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Council, you have 3 times to speak for 3 minutes. Good afternoon, Mr. Revelle.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. This request is to
amend the future land use map from the current designation of regional commercial to residential mix for a property that is located at 2303 Federal Street. The star on the map shows the approximate location of the property. This shows the current designation as regional commercial, and the proposed on the right-hand side would be to change that to residential mix. Here's an aerial view of the property. It's listed to 0.22 acres. Here's a look at the property looking north, looking south, to the west, and then also to the east. The subject property, as I said, is currently designated as regional commercial, and that regional commercial type allows all scales and types of commercial. The proposal is to change that to residential mix, which we believe is more in keeping with what the surrounding character of the area currently is. That residential mix allows for a number of low-density residential uses, as mentioned here, single-family duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. If the applicant is successful with this, the intent is to later submit a request to rezone the property to R2 so that a duplex could be built on the property. And the current zoning of the property is B5, but before you do the zoning, you have to do the future land use, and so that's the case in front of you tonight. Access is most certainly being provided at the property. There is no need for a traffic impact analysis for what would be put there. And in terms of utilities and services, all of that those things are in place. It is also located in the intended growth area, and as the words imply, this is where we'd like to see growth happen. Utilities are there, services are there, and also it aligns with the big ideas of the plan as it relates to diversifying housing and neighborhood options. And if I could, I will go back just to explain that a little bit more. So all of these houses here are fourplexes. And then in this general area here, you've got a mixture of single-family detached and duplexes. Lines with the comp plan big ideas, comp plan recommendations that would move forward, be advanced by this effort. And again, we're finding that this request, if granted, would be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and then also all of the criteria that has to be met associated with a flume amendment or future land use amendment is met by this case as well. So staff is recommending approval of this request. All notifications were accomplished to date, no written responses. That shows the notification extents. And again, we're recommending approval from regional commercial to residential mix. Planning and Zoning Commission heard this case on June 17th and recommended approval of the applicant's request unanimously with a vote 6-0.
Mr. Rivera, thank you. That was a very detailed overview, especially when you went back and made sure that we understood all the necessary services are in place and it's a part of comprehensive plan for future growth.
Yes,
and I
ma'am.
think that was excellent, and thank you for adding that to your presentations.
Yes, ma'am.
Council, are there any questions? Madam Secretary.
PH 24026, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance submitted by Belton Engineering, Inc. on behalf of Duncan Estates LLC to rezone approximately 37.176 acres out of W.H. Cole Survey Abstract Number 216 from A Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District. The subject property is locally addressed as 499 Tower Hill Lane, Killeen, Texas.
Thank you for that, Council. Also, just want to bring to your attention on this item, it is required a 3/4 majority vote in order to get this passed on this particular item. Mr. Revelle.
Yes, ma'am. This is a request to rezone property that's located at 499 Tower Hill Lane from its existing zoning designation of agriculture to single-family residential. It's 37.176 acres. The star on the map shows the approximate location for the property. There's the aerial, and again, just off the map is 195. This is a view of the subject property looking east, a view looking north, a view looking south, and a view looking on this western edge where there's existing single-family residential. Same thing here. Again, the request is to, well, the current designation for the property for future land use is residential mix. That's most certainly the request would be consistent with that future land use or place type. It's also located in the controlled growth area. And again, I'll restate, controlled growth doesn't mean no growth. It just means that it's controlled, it's managed. And there are a number of things that the comp plan acts that we look at when we look at that. And so, for instance, the last bullet talks about neighborhood options, and it also talks about, is it fiscally sustainable? I don't have the data on the slide, but I can tell you that this property currently generates $300 to the city of Killeen in terms of taxes a year. That equates to about $6 an acre. What the comp plan says is that in order for a property to pay for itself or to break even on city services that are provided, that per acre it needs to generate about $3,350. So it's quite a bit short of that. This development, if it was put in place, it would be 135 units. If you assume that the value of those units averaged about $250,000, you could easily see a generation per acre of about anywhere from $5,500 to $6,000, which more than exceeds the break-even point and far exceeds the current output from the lot. This request is consistent with these big ideas as mentioned. Also, it furthers these, as noted, the comp plan recommendations here. In terms of public notification, all the notifications have been accomplished. No written responses received to date. And I will share on this slide, I think this is the best time to share this. There is this property here. It's a 200-plus acre site, somewhere between 200 to 300 acres. I think it's 264 acre site. This is a protection site. It's in a trust, in a wildland trust. I do know that there was some concern expressed at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting about it, making sure that this area could serve as a density buffer to this location. There was some concern expressed there, but I would note what's being requested here is single family, which is the same thing that's already here or at this location. And then off of the map to the north, there's already property that's zoned single family as well. And then if you could see over to the east, there are the designations that's more intense than what's being asked for here. So staff is recommending approval of this request. We believe it's consistent with the comp plan. We also believe it's consistent with the character of the area and the surrounding properties. And then, of course, at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on June the 17th, the commission voted as a body to recommend disapproval of this request by a vote of 4-2, and therefore, as the mayor said in her beginning comments for this case, it requires a 3/4 majority vote to overturn at the time where the council would choose to make its decision on this case.
Thank you, Mr. Cagle. Councilmember Sagara has a question, and I will follow up with him. If any other council member, if they would like to speak, I'll follow behind them. Councilmember Sagara.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It looks like a good project, and as you mentioned, it's consistent with the surrounding areas. and also with residential mix. And, you know, it's good. Is it costing the city anything? Is there anything that we as a city have to do?
So they're not asking the city for any incentives, and so there's no incentives that the city would provide. And then as it relates to their connections, there are already connections that's nearby, that's there, and so they would have to pay
They
for
would
all
have
of
to
the
pay, so
utility
it
and
doesn't cost the
infrastructure.
city
connections. No, sir.
anything.
No.
And as you mentioned, you know, 135 units at an average price of $250 would definitely increase the revenue to the city. My question is, why did the P&Z turn it down? Did you hear some of the comments as to why they?
Yes, sir. The primary reason in the P&Z report was related to, they were concerned that this density would be too intense and would have an impact on that neighboring 264-acre trust property.
Yeah.
But again, there are some challenges to that. It's difficult for me to see that fully because, you know, just even hydraulically, this property here that's under consideration is a lower elevation than the trust property, so there wouldn't be any impacts drainage-wise. And then again, the surrounding areas associated with that trust already has intense development. Now, it does have some agriculture, but if you look at all four sides, it already has some single family, and in some instances, something even more intense than that.
Well, and I reflect back on other areas that have happened like this, where we have certain subdivisions, and behind it, you know, you have a lot of wildlife. I would say it's the opposite. You know, usually what happens is when you get homeowners that build houses there, the wildlife tends to come into the house. You know, you get scorpions and snakes for a while, and they come out screaming. But it usually doesn't happen the other way around. But I think it's a good project, so appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is related to the wildlife piece. Have we been in touch? I saw that there was no opposition received when we reached out to property owners. Have we been in touch with the trust executives to see if this was had they had any issues?
We didn't receive any opposition comments from them.
Okay.
You know, we did our research associated with the trust to understand exactly what the function is and could there be any potential impacts. We didn't see any.
And I know typically with trusts, unless the trust sells the property, that will never change the way it is. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Revelle, for the
Yes, sir.
presentation. Just wanted to go over a few things on here. I think Councilmember Adams stated there was no opposition on this, including from this trust for the adjacent property. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. No, we didn't receive any correspondence
Okay.
from them.
And I saw the trust is based in New York, so it's not anybody local here. The connecting streets that this would be connecting to looks like it's Tapadero's Path and
Yes.
Paddock Lane, which both are currently R1 subdivisions, so
Yes,
it
sir.
makes sense. You're going to tie into and continue the same thing that the streets are tying into. It's not like they're tying into something that's completely different. So I think it makes absolute sense. You guys are the experts in this. We're not planners or engineers of the sort, so I think me speaking for myself, I agree with y'all's staff's recommendation. I see what P&Z was thinking. I don't think that, you know, that may be an opportunity for some more training for our P&Z commissioners. You know, we talk about fiscal impact all the time. We talked about it a lot during our comprehensive planning process. You know, if these neighborhoods are going to be sustainable fiscally, 15, 20, 50 years down the road, and putting acreage lots, I don't think would get us there. You may get 30 homes in there, maybe, once you deduct for easements and roadways. Average valuation, you probably produce $15 million worth of taxable value. The proposed 135 R1 homes would be closer to $34 million of value. And you're going to maintain the same amount of roadway, whether you have acreage lots or 60-foot lots. Same amount of water line, same amount of sewer. So it makes sense to me. So thank y'all for y'all's recommendation on this. Appreciate
Yes, sir.
it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Ravel.
Good evening, sir.
See, we've arrived to yet another supermajority vote situation in accordance with Section 31 of the Code of Ordinances, so that's fine. This particular zoning case to me seemed to be straightforward, whereas I didn't understand why P&Z recommended disapproval. So I determined to review the P&Z meeting to better understand how we arrived to this point. And the first thing I noted was that staff notified 99 surrounding property owners regarding this request and received no opposition.
Yes, sir.
The second thing I noted was that there were no questions by our commissioners for staff following the presentation. And during the meeting, a citizen who was a past owner of the property spoke in support of the request, and conversely, another citizen spoke in opposition, expressing concerns related to serviceability, pressure plane, emergency vehicle access, traffic, and drainage, none of which were substantiated or highlighted by our city staff professionals as an issue. There was a subsequent recommendation from the opposing citizen to increase the lot sizes, which easily places the project in jeopardy in terms of feasibility. And gratefully, staff took a moment to inform the board that the applicant originally proposed smaller lots, but agreed to R1 having already made a compromise. So there was a call for larger lots, but the developer or the applicant had already made a compromise, if you will. While I was not compelled by the argument for the phantom issues and larger lots, I did want to provide some insight to the council as we approach this particular vote. More importantly, there are 3 core facts to take into consideration here, which are facts. The request is consistent with a comprehensive plan, which the mayor is always highlighting. Our city staff professionals recommend approval of the request, and staff notified 99 surrounding property owners regarding the request, having received absolutely no opposition. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Councilmember Boyd, for that, and all council members. Mr. Revelle, my question to you. Planning and zoning said no. The city of Killeen said yes. One of the concerns that I received and I talked to when I went through the agenda review was commercial property. As we get ready to that comprehensive plan, we grow up. Councilmember Alvarez had a good point about density. I agree with you on that, and also with Councilmember Boyd. Please explain in detail, and the reason that this is important for you to explain to the residents, because once I move from this item, I will go into citizen comments. And I need to let them understand why the city says yes. And planning and zoning, we cannot speak for them, but go in more details, how this follows with our comprehensive plan and why this is an important project for the city of Killeen.
Yes, ma'am. So as we mentioned, this is in residential mix, right? So this request is single family, so it fits that place type. That's one of the things that we're looking for, this, because our comp plan says, hey, is it consistent with the future land use? Then the other thing we look at is growth. You know, what growth zone or what growth area it's in. And by the way, we don't have any growth zone that says no growth. We've got one that says limited growth. We got one that says control growth. This one is in control growth. And our comp plan gives us recommendation related to what you look for as it relates to control growth. And so we looked at that. Are there utilities nearby? Can the site be serviced? And the answer obviously is yes. You also look at can the site pay, can the development pay for itself? And you heard from the information that I gave. Currently, it's paying $6 an acre, where the break even is $33.50 an acre. And then if this development moved forward with the assumptions that I made, $250,000 price per lot, it would generate anywhere from $5,500 to $6,000 an acre, far exceeding break even, paying for itself. So those are the things that we looked at in evaluating this. We also did take into account the public process. It was a very open public process. As Councilman Boyd mentioned, almost 100 people were notified. We received no responses in opposition to that. So that was taken into account. And then also we look at what could be impacts on nearby properties, whether those environmental impacts or drainage impacts, traffic impacts, and otherwise. And again, with the traffic, as Councilman Alvarez mentioned, the traffic is there. You got access off of 195 down I think it's Spalding Ranch, and then also you got access off of Chaparral on up Taylor Reed to to this location as well. So there were no major access concerns. And then you look at, can they meet all of the city requirements as it relates to our long-range requirements? So our long-range requirements related to transportation, do they meet that? Our long-range requirements related to parkland dedication, can they meet that? And of course, all of those boxes check yes. And so all of that went into our decision-making. We tried as best we could to share that decision-making and calculus with the Planning and Zoning Commission. I believe they heard it, but they had a different opinion.
Thank you, sir, for going in details with that. Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Adele. Before I take a break and we go into our council meeting, I just want to reiterate to the council that once the agenda was approved, that PR 24-019, PR 24-027, and PH-24-028 will not be considered for tonight's agenda. They have been pulled. And also the presentation, that item was canceled. With that being said, we are going to take a 5-minute break for our IT to set up for our next meeting. All right, we're coming back from our little break there. We will now go into our citizen comments. We will now go into our citizen comments with Melissa Brown. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you. Just so you know, I'm pretty sure that everything you talked about with all the presentations and stuff is not really official. No agenda item number for it. Can't just write on the agenda that you're going to have discussions and presentations for later on in the meeting without specifying what that is, because obviously it changed. Also, along those lines, I think that that was probably the fastest and worst setup that I have seen from this council ever. No discussion, very few questions, very little time for the public, much less the council, to understand what was going on. And now you're going to listen, or not, obviously, to what the citizens are saying before jumping into a consent vote. So everything other than what you're legally required to hear from separately and vote on separately, you're just going to have a consent yes. So let's talk about the parks though, because I spent a great deal of time over at Condor Park on Sunday. Do you know that most of the people who go use Condor Park on a regular basis don't know what pickleball is, nor do they care to have it? Actually, a lot of them use the tennis courts that are over there. I'm sorry, at Long Branch. Let me take that back, at Long Branch Park. And those residents are a little upset that they may be losing their tennis courts without ever being consulted, just because other people thought pickleball might be a good idea. So who did get consulted on this before making the decision? Whose idea was it to turn this into a pickleball courts? And why? How much time do any of the council members spend at Long Branch to see how often those tennis courts are used? Because they're actually used even more than the basketball courts. The tennis courts are used all day, from early in the morning all the way up until after dark, because half the time the lights don't turn on at those courts, but people are still out there playing tennis. The basketball courts tend to only get used very early in the morning and later in the evening after the sun sets. I would say that I'm really against that. And so you at least go out and talk to the residents around each of these parks and the residents who use each of these parks to determine exactly what it is that they are looking for. But they don't have an opportunity to come out right now because 3 o'clock, and if they weren't here by 3:30, that's it. They've missed everything. This is selfish. This is rude. I would also say, though, on a side note, that I very highly support transferring the service dog over to the officer that it has been paired with and who has been handling it for its entire career with the Killeen Police Department. I think it's only fair to send it into retirement in a home where it's already secure, safe, and very well taken care of. Thank you.
I did hear that right, mate. Okay. Good evening, City Council. So I concur with Ms. Brown on the service dog. It's kind of a normal practice to go ahead and allow the officer that's handled the animal to maintain the animal. It, kind of goes in line with man's best friend, if you will, right? So I would support that decision. Under the GSI system, why did we go with a California company instead of a Texas-based company? I understand the bidding process, but I don't think that any Texas company was actually advised in this. So I was just wondering why we didn't utilize that, and we're going to spend the money and give it to a California company instead of a Texas-based company, because these companies are pretty normal for Texas and large city areas. So I would ask that we reevaluate that and spend our money internally for the state of Texas instead of supporting California. Changing up the parks in Killeen, updating them and stuff like this is fine and dandy, but there needs to be more input. One person's idea, one person's thought, or two people's thought, oh, let's just do this. I get it. That's kind of like the modus operandi of the city of Killeen, but I think that there should be a little bit more, surveys put out there or something put on the ballot hey, do y'all want pickleball? Do you want this? Do you want that? You know, is it, you know, get more than just 100 people to say, hey, we're going to do this. You know, we don't get a lot of activity on voting in this town unless it's for marijuana. But, you know, outside of that, you know, 3,000 or 4,000 people decide where 160,000 people go. So, and I would also rise to propose underneath Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.001, to propose that next week's agenda that we add a topic for discussion of abuse of authority by the city council. So, and with that said, thank you for your time.
Mr. James, Councilmember, 1 minute, stand by, sir. Councilmember Adams?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, Madam Mayor, the item that was discussed twice already, we're not voting on whether pickleball or tennis court. We're voting on whether to accept the grant or not, correct?
Well, yes, but we would use that grant
For those items.
to convert 1 out of 4 tennis courts into 4 pickleball courts with that money.
Right, I understand that, but your staff isn't seeking our approval to do specifically that, because okay, I got it, thanks.
Mr. James Seals? Good afternoon, sir. How are you? Great. It's always good to see you.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city manager. So I actually came here tonight just to pet the dog. Thought I'd be here. I don't know if you can arrange that later or something. All right. No, reality, I signed up for an agenda item, but really I wanted to kind of talk about the agenda as a whole and the structure. And I've sent some emails on it.
Sir, you have to speak on the agenda, the items that's on the agenda.
Okay, I'm going to talk
And
about
the format of the agenda is not on the agenda.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the Senior Citizen Advisory Board. So part of the restructuring of the council meetings was to provide more time to the council members to research and gather more information on decision-making. And so, you know, I'm not specifically calling anyone out, but, you know, the expectation now, especially from a citizen's perspective, that our comments have been cut in half. Our time has been cut in half. We have to be here early, take time off of work, is that upon arriving, that those decisions, that information is made available. And so as tonight, I don't even know if you can go into voting on consent agenda because you haven't appointed a member to the senior citizen group. So, you know, until that you appoint that member, then I don't know if you can actually vote to approve a member as part of the consent agenda. So, you know, I just think that the expectation for citizens that when we come here is that those decisions or discussions have already taken place, or whoever was assigned to do that research and provide that information would have it available. So when we come up to comment, that we were able to actually comment on those items themselves. That's all I have.
Thank you. And for the residents in the audience and also the ones that are watching, the consent agenda can be approved because that item can be tabled and we can move forward. With that being said, Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez.
Yes, thank you, Madam. I just wanted to address the citizens' concern about the pickleball courts. My understanding is that those courts, as well as the tennis courts, which I explained earlier, is a very much utilized area within the park. But my understanding is that they are adding to, not taking away. Can we get confirmation on that?
Now, there's 4 courts right now, and this would take one of the courts, one of the tennis courts, and turn that one tennis court into 4 pickleball courts.
Thank you. But there will be remaining tennis courts, correct? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem, and Mr. Cagle for that clarification. And also, Mr. Provost, since you're standing, please come up because I have a question for you before we move forward. The question is, the grant is one thing. Taking under consideration that 100 and, I guess it was said, 162 people made this decision, would you please go in more details, the decision to use with the grant, the design, and who was a part of that discussion on turning the tennis court into a pickleball court?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Which is
So-
one of the top ones throughout the country. Everybody love it.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So pickleball is in huge demand in the city of Killeen. And if you visit the FRC on a daily basis, the pickleball courts that we set up inside the FRC are heavily utilized, over capacity. And so the patrons that visit the FRC have requested time and time again that we add more pickleball courts. And the way we came about the pickleball courts at Long Branch, converting from one of the four, is because those are the only free accessible tennis courts in the area. So making that free and accessible to the public at the lowest cost and maximum benefit to the citizens of Killeen through different interactions with the community members, through the Parks and Recs Advisory Board, the Citizen Advisory Board, the patrons going through there. They've all requested that we add the pickleball courts, and asking them at a location, they've all liked the Long Branch location as a suitable placement. So based upon our current needs and our facilities that we have, that was the best utilized facility to convert one tennis court out of the three, not taking away anything from the tennis courts, but one out of the four into 4 pickleball courts seemed the most prudent thing to do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Provost, because you are correct. When I go over to the gym, it's very hard to get on the court. That's the complaint I have of especially the senior population, the time. So I'm grateful that we did get a grant, and I'm grateful that we're looking out for all our residents in the city of Killeen. And Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez is really focused on the north side, especially with parks and bringing more activities over there. So thank you so much.
Yes, Madam Mayor. And the one
Mayor
correction,
Pro
this
Tem.
is to put in for the grant, bringing this to council so we could apply for the grant.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your leadership. With that being said, we will now, Madam Secretary, go to the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, is there a citizen comment form for Michael Fornino?
And for public hearing, but it's not a citizen comment. I mean, I think Ms. Laura, she does this quite well and organized and everything.
Thank
So-
you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Consent agenda, MN 24017, consider minutes of regular city council meeting of June 25, 2024. RS 24127, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing an agreement to transfer a police service dog. RS 24128, consider a memorandum resolution approving a one-year license agreement with Environmental Systems Research Institute, Inc. for the Geographic Information System Division in an amount of $52,468. RS 24129, consider a memorandum resolution declaring a vacancy on the Senior Citizen Advisory Board and appointing a member to fill the unexpired term. RS 24130, consider a memorandum resolution supporting the application to Texas Parks and Wildlife Department's Local Park Grant Program, Non-Urban Outdoor Grant, FY24.
Madam Secretary, thank you so much. Councilmember Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Make a motion to approve the agenda with the exception of number 5, RS 24129.
Thank you. Councilmember Cobb.
I second that motion.
All right, we got a motion to approve the agenda except for RS-24-129. All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. Council, we will now go back to RS-24-129, and that's to consider a memorandum resolution declaring a vacancy on the Senior Citizen Advisory Board and appointing a member to fill the unexpired term. Councilmember Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I make a motion that we would table this
Do you
until
have a date?
August the 6th.
The motion is to table RS-24-129 until August the 6th. Councilmember Adams.
Madam Mayor, I second the motion.
All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. We will now move into our public hearing. Council, you have 3 minutes to speak, 3 times each. Madam Secretary, public hearing.
PH 24025, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance submitted by John Bandus on behalf of Laura McManus and Greg McDonald to amend the comprehensive plan's future land use map from a regional commercial designation to a residential mix designation for approximately .222 acres out of Lot 11, Block 1, Fisher Commercial Subdivision, Phase 3. The subject property is locally addressed as 2303 Federal Street, Killeen, Texas. The caption of the ordinance reads, "An ordinance amending the comprehensive plan's future land use map to change approximately .222 acres of Lot 11, Block 1, Fisher Commercial Subdivision, Phase 3, from a regional commercial designation to a residential mix designation, providing a severability clause, providing a savings clause, providing for the repeal of conflicting provisions, providing for publication, and an effective date."
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Council, Mr. Revelle has gone over the presentation. Would you like for him to go back over it? All right, thank you. Is the applicant here? If so, would he or she, would you like to speak? Good afternoon, sir.
Madam Mayor, City Council, I'm John Bandus, 12238 Antilles Lane in Conroe, Texas. I've been working with the Mr. McDonald and Ms. McManus for a couple of years on this property, trying to get a storage facility going, and we have discussed very many ways we could use this little piece of land that actually goes down and touches Terrace Drive, even though it's addressed on Federal Street. And as you can see from the amendment map, notification map, you have the little piece of commercial going down and touching Terrace Street, and the neck of land between that, where it goes between the two residential mix, is not big enough to do anything in the way of a driveway or drainage or anything. So that little piece of land would otherwise be wasted, and we're trying to get it qualified to become a duplex lot, which will provide housing. I'm sure the duplex will be worth $300,000 or $400,000. It'll be a very nice duplex, and it'll add to your tax base, and it'll also connect the two disconnected residential mix areas on the north side of Terrace Drive. So that's our thinking on it, and hope you find us and find favor in it.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Are there any questions, council? Thank you, sir. We will now open up for public hearing. Michael Fornino. Good afternoon, sir. You have 4 minutes. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Fornino. Following him, Mr. James Seals. You have 4 minutes.
Yeah, signed up for 2-6.
Oh, apologize for that, sir.
No worries.
So did anybody sign up for this one? Of course. Let's see. Melissa Brown, you have 4 minutes. You have 4 minutes.
Thanks, I know.
Which one is this?
Thank you. I want to say that I actually very much support this one. After going to the planning and zoning meeting and listening to it there and watching, there really is nothing else that would fit back in this little less than quarter of an acre area. In addition to that, what I would say is this is what the comp plan is talking about when it talks about the use of the properties, when it talks about creating a place where everyone can live, work, and play. This is what it means when it talks about different housing types and a variety of types of housing and access for everyone. This, if I were to have something on here to talk about the budget, would be a good one to talk about the budget on, because this one maximizes the area where we can get the most property tax out of a housing residential type, where there's going to be 0% chance of it being exempted by the veterans homestead exemption. Because if it's a duplex, it's not going to be owned as a homestead exemption for anyone, at least in its entirety. Which makes it better for all of the citizens. This makes it walkable to be right behind a commercial area and be able to walk out of your doors and to commercial properties. That increases the walkability. This is what our comprehensive plan is talking about. This is infill development. This is exactly what we should be concentrating on. We should have something every single week so that citizens can come up here and talk about how this does or does not benefit our budget or anything else going on in the city. But we'll have to hopefully get our first opportunity to do that on August 6th. In the meantime, this should be highly supported. I would encourage the council to look at everything critically and analytically, because as we just saw, based off of the questions that came up after citizen comments on the consent agenda, even after a week, the council has not thoroughly researched everything. As a whole, citizens are able to come up here and give you more information. I could come up here tonight and give you a lot more detail on PH 24-025 than I think any of you collectively have after a week of having the agenda. We need to go back to something different.
Is there anyone else would like to speak on this item before I close it out? Well, I thank everyone that did speak on this item. Thank you for your comments. Public hearing is closed. Can I get a motion to approve PH-24-025? Councilmember Adams.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve PH 24-025.
Councilmember Cobb. I second that motion. All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Thank you, Council. Motion carries 7-0. Madam Secretary, whenever you're ready.
PH 24026, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance submitted by Belton Engineering, Inc. on behalf of Duncan Estates LLC to rezone approximately 37.176 acres out of W.H. Cole Survey, abstract number 216, from A Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District. The subject property is locally addressed as 499 Tower Hill Lane, Killeen, Texas.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Council, Mr. Rebel has gone through the presentation. Would you like for him to go back through it? Okay. Is the applicant here? If so, would he or she like to speak, sir?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I need to read the caption of the ordinance. I
Okay.
apologize.
I just asked Mr. Cagle, did I miss something? Okay, sir, I apologize. Okay, please.
The caption of the ordinance reads, "An ordinance amending the City of Killeen zoning ordinance by changing the zoning of approximately 37.176 acres out of the W.H. Cole Survey Abstract Number 216, locally addressed as 499 Tower Hill Lane, Killeen, Texas, from A Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District, providing a savings clause, providing for the repeal of conflicting provisions, providing for an effective date."
That's what I was looking for, effective date. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Cagle. So we'll start that back over. Council, Mr. Rebel has already done the presentation. Would you like them to do it again? All right, thank you. Now the applicant, sir, please come up, and I truly apologize for that. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Marshall Florence. I work for Belton Engineering, and I really didn't have anything to add. I thought the presentation did a good job.
All right, council, do you have any questions of him? Thank you so much,
Thank you.
sir. We will now have our public hearing. Public hearing is open. Melissa Brown. Good afternoon and welcome back.
Now, this is the confusing one. So I'd like to know how any council member knew exactly what was said, asked, or done. You may have listened to some audio, could have gone back and watched a video, but I did not see a single elected official there outside of Louis Minor, who's the chair. So, no, Mr. Duncan did not come out and speak in favor or in support of this. He came out and spoke about the history of the land and the property and how it came to be in his family, and that this is the last piece of property in his family, and requested that it get done properly. Yes, there are two ingress-egress points to this. However, whichever route you decide to use, you still have to go all the way through Spawn Ranch. There's no direct route off of 195 to get over to this new addition of 38 acres of housing. That means emergency vehicles have to go through all of the rest of Spawn Ranch, all the way up to the very far back corner of this. That means so do our solid waste vehicles. Means so do water and sewer vehicles. Means every single one of our city services do. So while it may get more taxable revenue per acre, we're also putting out more money per acre as soon as this is developed. R1 is not a buffer between R1 housing and a wildlife/land preserve. And the more properties that you put up right along that line, the more likely there would be for chemicals to spill out and through the water, get into the dirt, get brought along into that nature preserve area. Environmentally speaking, Mr. Alvarez could probably tell us that the more you put houses and cars, the more likely you are to have some sort of chemical runoff. I don't care how nice of an area it is, accidents still happen. So you put all that out there, you run the risk. You all run the risk of allowing that to happen to this area. You all run the risk of saying, okay, staff, we know you're overworked, overstressed. We're going to put a little bit more on you. We're going to have you go out there and we're going to have you do these other 38 acres of density housing, R1s. Go ahead, once all those roads are built. And to say that there will be no additional cost to the city is baloney. There's always additional cost to the city. Tower Hill Road is actually our lane will be expanded and improved because of this, at least according to the presentation that was given at Planning and Zoning. So anytime that there's an improvement to public infrastructure, where does that cost go to? The developer is not going to swallow that cost forever. So as soon as they pack up and they leave there, that gets passed on to the city. No parks in this area, right? They're going to just pay fees in lieu of, so you don't have any additional parkland there. That preserve and that green space, that is not for the city. That is not for our citizens. So this is not going to help anything with that. But on the other hand, please, if you're not going to at least entertain making it AR1 and giving us a true variety of housing in Swan Ranch that would comply with the plan, then go ahead with their original plan to make the density as tight as possible. Give as much density as you can, because walking around, it's much easier to get petitions signed for recalls in high-density areas than it is R1s, and I'll be using it in November. Thanks.
Michael Fornino. Good afternoon, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Just so everybody's on the same page, and thou shalt not bear false witness, I invite everybody to go to beltonengineers.com. The young man over there said that he works for Belton Engineering. If you click on About, guess who else works for Belton Engineering? Currently, it's on their website, Mr. Alvarez. My first problem with this is definite, obvious conflict of interest if he doesn't want to recuse himself. I mean, I realize that I'm ugly, but I'm not stupid. This is going to be the friends and family plan if it goes that way. This is on the agenda, Madam Mayor. My 4 minutes, you're interrupting the meeting, not me.
Madam Secretary, stop the time, please. Thank you.
You're interrupting the meeting, Madam Mayor. This is my 4 minutes, not yours.
Mr. Fornino, I'm not trying to tell
Well, then what's the
you
problem?
what
He says he's not going to
you
recuse
can't-
himself on the vote publicly.
Mr. Fornino, I'm not trying to tell you what to say or not, but you can talk on the agenda. You can say a council
And I am on the
member.
agenda.
You can say a council member name. So I just don't want this conversation to be more about him stepping down and not the agenda item. You can talk about what you want to.
Well, I'm glad your crystal ball once
So,
again has
thank
some
you.
clairvoyance as to
Madam
what I'm going to talk
Secretary,
about and what I'm not going to talk
You can start
about.
the clock. Thank you.
Right? That's the first problem here. This gentleman says that he's not going to recuse himself from the vote. Okay? He says, I don't need to. Okay? Yeah, he's currently on their team, employed. That's a clear conflict of interest. Another thing with this is I am yet to see one rezoning thing come up here for anything. Everything goes to R1. R1, R1, R1. Here we have not quite 40 acres and certainly no mule. Where are we going to build the businesses? This sort of thing, every single time something like this comes up with. And the majority of you are in the real estate business. There's no hiding that. The Killeen that you live in is not the Killeen that we live in. Ms. Gonzalez earlier, just going to her comment about how we need to know what's going on in the neighborhood. Okay? I can say, and I'll sanitize this to make it as anonymous as possible, a certain petition was circulated on a certain council member's street. Most of that council member's neighbors who live on that street have no idea who that council member is and never heard of that council member. There, I kept it nice and gender neutral for you.
Point of order, that has nothing to do with the agenda. And
Yes,
we do
it
not need
does.
to sustain
No,
these
you
type
got-
of
Mr.
conversations
Boyd.
no longer. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Stop your
Mr.
Point of order, sir. Point of order. Point of order.
Mr. Fornino, Mr. Fornino, it's a point of order. Let's hear his point of order. Stop the clock, Madam Secretary, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Councilmember Boyd.
Respectfully, this topic, this sustaining a narrative publicly over the airwaves about something that's not on the agenda is inappropriate. and should
Oh,
not
we're
be
supposed to keep
sustained.
it a secret,
So at
even
this
though it's
point, it
public
would be
record.
important that we continue the meeting as planned. Thank you.
Mr. Fornino, please.
Well, when Mr.
Get
Boyd
on
grows
the
up and he
agenda.
gets to be the mayor someday, maybe he can act like that.
Madam Secretary, start back the clock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Continue.
I'll offer this up, okay? Clearly, you're afraid of half the stuff that I bring up here with facts. Okay, you want to talk about conflict of interest? We got another one for the gentleman sitting to your left, Mr. Boyd. Okay, city attorney's got that one. Yeah, it's all related, all right?
Mr.
You don't
Fornino,
like
Mr.
this nonsense
Fornino.
of trying to separate
Stay on
the
the
people
agenda.
from the issue.
Stay on the agenda.
This is my 4 minutes, not
Stay on the
yours.
agenda.
Not yours.
Stay on the agenda.
Time and time and time again. Where are the businesses? This can be anything but R1 that you folks on the friends and family plan in the real estate business, okay, for once, not make money off it. What is it? I give it about 15 years before the words eminent domain start circulating in this chamber or wherever the hell else it's going to be. And the bulldozer blades start dropping square in District 1. Hey, we've done all we can. There's no businesses there. Where do people in this town work? We got plenty of places to live and no place to work. But you claim you have the pulse on the town.
Point of order.
No, you don't.
Point of order.
Ms. Fanino, another point of order. Stop the
Has
clock.
nothing to do with the agenda.
Yes, it does. It goes to the theme and the spirit of the agenda
Mr.
item.
Nothing to do with the
Mr.
agenda.
Fanino, he got a point of
How
order.
about
Are
somebody
you
here
finished
grow a
with the
spine? We'll
point
go
of
in that
order?
conference room over there.
Thank
We'll
you.
hide
Madam
behind the
Secretary,
desk
start
or the
back the
dais.
clock.
You
Mr.
can put the whole
Fanino.
police department
Control
between
your
me and you,
emotions.
and we'll have it out back and forth.
Mr. Sagara, don't do that.
You want to discuss it after the meeting? You're going to deny, oh, well, we can engage via email, which you've already chickened out directly and said, I will
Mr.
not
Fanino,
answer
you out
or
of order.
engage.
Get back on the agenda. Just get on the agenda item.
I can do it too. It's my 4 minutes.
We'll take a break. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, you don't like to be called out.
Madam Secretary, start back the clock.
How about we do something other than build houses that you folks can make money off of for once? I dare you. You want to discuss it? We can go in that room over there, put the entire police department between me
Mr.
and you,
Fanino,
and
your
we can
time
do that.
is up. Thank you. Mr. James Sills. Welcome back, sir. You have 4 minutes. Good to see you.
Good afternoon again. So few things on this particular public hearing item. So one, this is just an honest recommendation. This is probably the third time that I've heard the questioning of the Planning and Zoning Commission of their decisions. And I understand that they're not what you would call the experts, and that's fine. But I would just state that they're probably the closest thing to what the citizens see on some of these zoning requests, right? They're taking money out of it, and they're just looking at the area itself and making those considerations. So I would just say publicly, you probably want to support that Planning and Zoning Commission for what they do and not really question all the time of what their decisions are. Second, as far as the revenue here, I question that because the last 2 times I've heard about revenue, property tax revenue, one was an area that had a 67% DV exemption, and another was a 50% DV exemption. So I question that you guys are always including all of the houses as tax revenue when you know consistently, on average, anywhere from 30 to 50% are going to be exempt through disabled veterans. So I think you should really start calculating that in as some of your worst case instead of always planning on the best case. Third, your comp plan. When it talks, every time I see the slide, it says complete neighborhood. In this particular case, there's no park in Swan Ranch. And I understand that you've changed your standards, but this is another opportunity to maybe add a park in that area, draw back some of the houses, and provide an opportunity for all the residents and kids in that area to have a place to play safely that's not near Chaparral Road by the elementary school, which honestly is not big enough to support all the kids in that area. And like I said, it is completely on the other side. There's no amenities nearby. You know, there is a gas station right off of 195, but again, this is an area that has kind of a food desert situation again, right? There's not a lot there for people to go shop, get foods, walking distance, all of those things. So, you know, again, I think it's just part of that planning. The wildlife situation, it happens. You know, there's a lot of wildlife that depends on having stability, right? When you start building houses, you're taking away from water runoff, the water that they're probably using to drink from. So those are all considerations that I think when you look at some of these zonings is how are you going to address that? Have you asked the staff how they would address those things? You know, the buffer is going to be what it's going to be. I'm not against this. I'm just simply stating that these are things you really should start thinking about. Lastly, again, you've had a week, and I ask for complete transparency from all of you. You don't have to debate me, but you'll have 1 minute or 3 minutes to respond to me. I ask that each of you respond and let the public know if you actually went to this area, talked to the people that live out there, looked at the land, right? That's why we restructured this. So you had a week to look at all these areas physically, talk to the people in those areas, and ask them how they feel about it. Don't rely on that letter. When I did this for Featherline, I had hundreds of people that never saw that letter. Can I have 1 more minute, please?
So your time is up, council? Yeah, no, yes, no, okay. Can you raise your hand, all in favor of giving him a minute? 1, 2, 3. So we only have 3, no, sir. You
Okay.
need 4.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Public hearing is closed. So with that being said, there's some things I want to address that was said. I took some notes. One of the things that was stated that planning and zoning, and this is for the residents that first time here or for the residents that are at home. The city council appoint the members to the planning and zoning. Also, we have a variety of members, and they are also into real estate and some kind of development one way or the other. That's just a job, an occupation. So regardless, once we appoint them on that board, they're there to just go through the information and give the council a recommendation, because the council has the final say. The council don't check down on that, they check up. And I mean, from the perspective, they give us a recommendation, we take it under consideration. You're not gonna always agree. Mr. Revelle made it clear, an expert in this field. The staff approved this. They do this for a living, and we do go out to sites and we do visit sites. This council does. It was evidence when we had this recent town hall meetings, and more to come from this council, that they listen and they follow through. So I don't want anyone to think that this council take anything we vote on lightly, because that's not true. It's going to be a lot of things moving forward with our new agenda, the way it's set up, that's going to be thrown in the atmosphere just because they don't like the agenda. It does not make the staff wrong, it does not make the council wrong, and it does not make planning and zoning wrong. That's just an opinion, and the staff give us their opinion, just like planning and zoning. But this council and the future councils will make the vote and what's best for the city of Killeen, taking everything under consideration with the information given to us. Second of all, Madam City Attorney, conflict of interest. I don't like anything attacking the integrity of this council. I don't like that. I mean, before my understanding, because I received a phone call from Killeen De La Hera in reference to this, and I was told that when he was on this consultant, he wasn't even on the city council. So anything that happened prior to you coming to the city council, it cannot be a conflict of interest. So he came on the council afterwards. So I want to make it clear that if he's sitting in that seat and he is voting, it is not a conflict of interest, because he was a consultant before he ever ran to be on this city council. And that's for the record and the people at home. This council is integrity. We do have integrity. And we do utilize our resource, which is our legal team, before we do any vote when this may cause anyone to doubt the integrity, not only the council, the staff, and this city. The last thing I want to address before we vote on this is agenda items. The Open Meeting Act says that you must follow the agenda items. Each individual, I understand, you have an opinion. We all do. And I know you all that come up here to give your citizen comments, you really care about the city. I'm not downplaying that at all. But if we're going to work together to move the city and don't feel like I'm disrespecting you or you're disrespecting us, I don't like having to say you off the agenda. I want all of us to listen to each other, But if we stay on the agenda and anything else outside of that, it causes so much chaos in here. And we got to get on one accord and really focus on when we come and speak and you only have 4 minutes or we give you a response. This goes for council too. It goes both ways. We got to respect them and they got to respect us. But only thing I am asking you as mayor, please just stay on the agenda for the good of the meeting, especially the ones looking at home and the military, people around the world just looking at the city of Killeen. We're not chaotic. We do have self-control. We are one team in one fight. So let's just work together, council and also residents. With that being said, Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And those 3 points were well said.
Thank you.
Well said, Madam Mayor. I did just want to address a few things. I've been out to the site a few years ago prior to coming on council, so I'm familiar with that area, very familiar with that area. 2, I served on P&Z before coming on city council, and I reserve the right to challenge some of those recommendations as we are the final authority as the city council. Number 3, I know there were many phantom concerns that were mentioned and expressed about this development, which staff does not back. And I think, I would hope rather that the applicant will be working to incorporate some form of park space should there be any undeveloped land available for the project. This is something that does have my support. And with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve PH 24-026.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyd. Can I get a second? Councilmember Cigar.
I second that.
Please do not be yelling. The public hearing was closed. Thank you, sir. All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Thank you, council. The motion carries 7-0. We will now get ready to go into our closed meeting. Pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Law, VTCA Government Code 551.001 ET SEQ, the mayor now calls a closed meeting of the City Council on the 16th day of July 2024 at 4:27 p.m. Under the following authority, Section 551.074, Personnel Matters, the City Council will conduct a municipal judge review. Public discussion of this matter will not be in the best interest of the City of Killeen. Agenda item DS-24-043. We are now in public going to close meeting. The mayor will now call this meeting to order. It is 5:02 p.m. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
We have a motion by I'm sorry, are you ready? Oh, sorry about that. We have a motion by Councilmember Adams, and we have a second by Councilwoman Cobb. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Meeting adjourned. We will take a break before we set up for our PFC meeting.